Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment or medications if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. Visit bewelltexas.org.
Oh, welcome to the Gamblin Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. He's Money Mainville on the Barnett Howard Williams rundown. We've got the rest of the Big 12 football slate, a little bit of basketball, and of course, Texas Tech versus Colorado. Kyle, if someone in public hits you with, let's say, a tortilla, a water bottle, or other objects, quote unquote, how would you react to that?
Usually we tee up some kind of like insane legal hypothetical, but Colorado cried enough about it, they might actually call Barnett Howard and Williams to sue the student section for throwing tortillas at him. If they do need a good attorney, bhwlawfirm.com. They are based in Fort Worth, but handle cases all across the state of Texas. So I think the Tortilla Gate case could be heard in a Lubbock court, and Barnett Howard and Williams, I'm sure, would be happy to represent Coach Prime, a grown man who calls himself Coach Prime. They do criminal defense, catastrophic injury, one of the only law firms in the state of Texas certified for Title IX student litigation, bhwlawfirm.com if you want to learn more.
Yeah, and like Coach Prime, they ain't hard to find. Just go to the website.
That's right.
bhwlawfirm.com. All right, let's jump right into it. Money, I want to do basketball first, just to kind of get out of the way. It's non-conference. It shouldn't take long. We're 2 games in. We don't have point guards yet. We've played 7 guys, basically. Thoughts, process, issues. What do you have here?
Yeah, I think game 1, you kind of survived. And got a lot of production from a lot of different places, mainly from behind the arc, obviously having a historic day shooting the ball. This past game, a little bit more noticeable that things were a little disorganized, that you weren't fully yourself. I think you played worse across the board, and that's not to say that you played a bad game. Just felt a little disorganized. Felt like a game where you were still trying to break things in. Darion Williams had a really, really bad night from the floor, but did a lot in terms of playmaking and was doing well protecting the ball until the second half, where they started to go after him and really took advantage of not having a point guard out there. The shooting cooled down a little bit. And then obviously I think the other huge storyline in that game was the foul trouble down low and just how bad of a position that can put you in if that continues throughout the rest of the season. Again, you don't have EY down there to give you some depth. He's one of the many that are injured right now and listed as a game time decision. But I again, just like getting a feel for this team, I don't think you're going to want to be without Toppin on the floor for very long. And I think Federico's shown some stuff that, he can be serviceable down there, but not a lot through 2 non-conference games to, think there's a good bid for him to be, your starting C going into conference play. I think you've kind of found the lineup that works with Williams and Toppin as your front court, and you're going to want to keep that going as much as you can. So got to stay out of foul trouble. Thought Northwestern State had a good game plan to kind of go at those guys down low. Thought Texas Tech's defensive rotations looked a little sketchy in the season opener against Bethune-Cookman, and I think they had the same tape that we all did, because that was pretty much their game plan too, was try and get some of those disadvantageous rotations, get the big guys in foul trouble. But yeah, no major overreactions one way or another. I think you got to clean up some things rebounding. Free throw line, obviously you don't want to be leaving a lot of points there, but I think this team will figure it out, especially once those two lead guards are back in the mix.
Yeah, that'll be a big thing. I did think it was interesting that I forgot his name. What's no, hold on. I've got it. Cambridge. Devin Cambridge. I thought it was interesting. He just basically exclusively played with Federico in the first game. And they kind of mixed him in with Williams and Toppin and the crew, and maybe that's foul trouble, but I think you started that way. I think he started over Overton, maybe. So that was an interesting mix as well. Anything to that, or is it just trying to find some things? I guess my question here is, can we really know anything until you get Hawkins and Anderson back?
I don't think anything conclusive. I think,
Yeah.
All the more power to Grant McCaslin to try and throw some different things in the mix. I think running the, your best five throughout non-conference without making any adjustments is a mistake. And I think, right now you're really handicapped because you only feel good enough to play 7 guys right now, which is not good in non-conference because those guys are headed towards a Big 12 slate that is going to be very, very competitive. Features no breaks this year with the new additions to the league, but try some different things out. They went a little bit larger. I think their initial starting lineup that Tech reported had Federico slated in. So maybe that was a thing. Maybe it was a scorer's table issue, but I think definitely just trying to find a rhythm that works. Who's going to be the guy off the bench that gives you the punch? Obviously, Chance McMillan did that for you last year. I think they got Kevin Overton in that role in this past game, and he did well. I think he's still trying to tie it all together with consistency, but yeah, just trying what works and finding the best recipe in the process.
Kyle, do you have any basketball thoughts?
I think we're going all the way.
Okay. That's all the way to San Antonio?
All the way till the very end.
As a great man once said, the first Monday in April. All right. Let's get to the rest of the football slate across the Big 12 before we talk Colorado, Texas Tech. West Virginia stays alive for the Big 12 title. And no, I'm not joking. They beat Cincinnati 31-24. If Colorado loses once and West Virginia wins out, they will be in the Big 12 title game with BYU. Sorsby had some very uncharacteristic turnovers in this game. That has to be frustrating for a Cincinnati fan. Really good game from West Virginia, though, and I thought they looked good. I thought it was a good win, and it was Nico Marchiol who only threw 15 times and was 9 of 15, and I didn't know that Neil Brown had that in him. Iowa State, Kansas.
We broke them.
Must have. 45-36. They scored 16 in the fourth quarter to make it look even kind of close to respectable. Kyle, yes or no, Iowa State wins 10 games?
I thought you were going to ask me if Kansas was going to reach bowl eligibility. I thought it was a lock not so long ago. Even last week when we beat them, I was like, hey, they'll still get there. I think they've got a pretty tough end of the regular season schedule.
They do.
And if they don't win out, then they have to win a bowl game. And if they're on the cusp, let's say they're 9-3 and maybe just miss out on going to the Big 12 championship game, they probably draw a pretty good bowl opponent, like a top 25 team. And then it's on. And bowl games are such a crapshoot now. Not only are they neutral site, obviously, but one team may have 20 guys in the portal, the other team may have 0 in the portal, and you just don't know how that's going to shake out. I thought they were going to get 10 in the regular season, but it looks a little bit dicey now. And if they don't, I don't know, man.
Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State.
Where's Farmageddon? Is it in Ames?
It's in Ames.
Okay, that helps.
Cincinnati's in Ames.
Okay.
They go to Utah, who has a pretty stout defense, just can't score
Yeah.
or control the refs.
Yeah, more on that in a second. I think they'll get 2 out of 3, and then it's up in the air. Then they have to wait a month and play a bowl game against a good
Yeah.
team to see if they can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And even if they do that, I wouldn't do this because I love Iowa State fans. But if I were a Hawkeye or Emaw, every man a whiner, not that that's catching on, and I
Yeah.
wanted to still kind of like poke a stick in Iowa State's eye about the whole 10-win thing,
There's an asterisk.
I would say, well, you've never had a 10-win regular season in your entire school's history, and like everybody else has, that kind of thing. So, does it count if they get there with a bowl win? Yes, but that only slightly disarms their rivals when it comes to talking trash on Twitter because they're still gonna have that other arrow in their quiver.
Quiver. It's a good word. Hello, Sing Scarlet. It's good to see you. I believe we have a soccer announcements tomorrow for the tournament. Selection shows. Arizona State UCF. Arizona State survives without Cam Scadaboo, 35-31. That pushes UCF to 4-6 with 2 games left. Arizona State 7-2. 7-2. Arizona State. They're still in the mix for a Big 12 title game. Jeff Simcoe.
That's going to be our best win of the season in hindsight. Maybe. Probably still Iowa State, but that looks like a good win.
Yeah, or West Virginia when you get there.
Sure.
Okay. Are you okay? All right. And then TCU hammers Oklahoma State. Do we need to mention that at all? By the way, Oklahoma State 3-7.
Are they on a bye this week, just like us? I guess they
Yep.
are, for they've already played 10 games.
Just like us, Kyle.
I'm kind of glad they have nothing left to play for, like no shot at bowl eligibility.
Pride.
I don't know. Yeah, pride. I wonder what's going to happen with them long term. I'm a little surprised. I didn't think they were as good as advertised coming into the season. I didn't think they were going to fall off this hard.
It's that meme where the guys standing there looking shocked. And it's like me because I was preying on somebody's downfall and it's happening. And then the other guy's like dying over there. We prayed for this. BYU, number 9 in the country, beats Utah 22-21 on a last-second field goal. Now, I'll be honest, guys. I was watching this game, and I fell asleep and missed the comeback. BYU scores a touchdown. Then they punt it back and forth to each other. Maybe there's a turnover on downs in there. And then BYU drives down after a defensive holding call on 4th and 10. Still drives basically the distance of the field and gets a 44-yard field goal for the win. Do you want to talk about Big 12 officials now and again later, or do you want to pause this game and then talk about both the officiating moments together?
We can set the table a little bit, and I'll leave any thoughts or analysis till later. But the gist of it is, I guess Utah got the ball back with like 3 seconds and tried to run the lateral play, and it didn't work. But while the ball was live and the play was live, their AD was on the field yelling at a ref, and then I think the AD kind of like called off. Maybe Whittingham and some players still talk to media, but the AD went at least before them. Maybe he was the only one who talked to media and said straight up, "This game was stolen from us." Said something like, I think he was about to say we were glad to join the Big 12, but now we're not. And instead, he was like, we were happy to join the Big 12, but the officiating needs to be better. I don't know exactly what the quote was. And he was fined $40,000. Yormark responded and said, like, you can't call in to question the integrity of the game, or like, you can't cast doubt on the integrity of the game, um, which is fair. I'll have more thoughts on that later as well. And then Harlan, the UT AD, apologized and said how much he loves the Big 12 and BYU and wishes them all the best, which I'm sure was completely sincere. I didn't see the actual call that was so controversial, so I actually don't even have any opinion on that part. But
Do you know
that's
what it
kind
looked
of,
like? It looked like the Chiefs. What was it? Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl money. The holding call at the end. It's pretty much exactly like that.
I thought it was the right call. Find me.
Maybe so. All right, let's get into the Texas Tech game. First of all, thoughts on the jerseys?
I think they actually would have looked okay if we had no red and just used like black and white accents instead. But I thought the metallic stuff with like bright red didn't really go together. I guess they were like okay to wear once. I like the shell of the helmet. I don't know if I like the galvanized double T. I'm not totally anti-gray like some other folks. I thought they're probably the worst uniforms we've worn this year. I think they were better than some of the special edition Under Armour stuff we wore over the last 10 years, which is a low bar to clear, to be sure. But yeah, I would give them like a C. Like I don't really care to see them again. Love that the Mahomes logo was on it. That part was cool. But your base uniform now is so solid. Like I don't really need any special edition unis.
Yeah, so I didn't like them initially. Then the promotional shots kind of grew on me. I wanted to reserve full judgment until I saw them on the field. And from the press box, couldn't read a single number, had no idea what was going on mostly. Never knew who was sacking anybody. You can pretty well tell who the receivers are, and you know who Barron and the running backs are by how they run. But it's really hard. They weren't good.
It was tough on TV too,
Yeah,
and the
they
film
didn't.
crew wasn't great. The shadows casted on the field made it even more hard to see. But like, yeah, I had no idea. Like, especially defensively, like trying to read like, okay, who's out on the edge. Obviously, Jacob Rodriguez made himself really obvious to figure out who he was because he was everywhere. But outside of that, it was tough to identify guys.
Yeah. And again, the Adidas loves this metallic stuff. They'll do it any chance they get. Louisville's one-offs were all red with metallic gold accents. Those looked awful. These were better than those. But again, yeah, if you're grading it, they passed. But I wouldn't necessarily say it was big time. All right, let's get into the game. Texas Tech drives down, gets the ball first, drives down, scores a touchdown. Wow, holy crap. Gets a stop. Wow, holy crap. The second drive, you stall out, kick a field goal, 10-7. 10-7, 10-0. You get another stop. Third drive, you drive down, get even further into the red zone. Baron Morton sends Josh Kelly into motion. Josh Kelly runs to the 5, starts doing calisthenics and jumping jacks. He's wide open. Barron looks at him over there, running with nobody beside him, and then pulls the ball down, runs right, and takes a huge sack, and then throws it to the sideline. The next play, they kick another field goal. It's 13-0, and I kid you not, gentlemen, when you miss that wide open touchdown opportunity, or at least a first down, or it would have gotten inside the 5 for sure. You shake one tackle or get to the pylon, that's a touchdown if he throws it early enough. I said to myself in the press box, Colorado will lead before halftime, which didn't happen, but right after halftime. And I just thought, there's no way. There's no way you beat Colorado missing touchdowns like that. And it didn't happen exactly how I thought it would. There was more controversy than I thought there would be. But from that moment, even though you got 4 stops to start the game, I just did not think you were going to be competitive moving forward if they were not going to get those kind of executional situations. If you're not going to execute those situations right there twice in a row. So at 13-0, I did not feel good. Did not feel like Texas Tech had a lead at halftime. It was 13-10. And it didn't feel like you were overly competitive to finish the game. You start off 13-0. They beat you 41-14 after that. It felt like it.
We talked on Wednesday, and I said this is going to be a battle of coaching. And if Texas Tech can embrace the feeling of having their backs against the wall, come out with a chip on their shoulder, and recognize that they're kind of going to be the small dog in this fight, if they can embrace that more than Colorado will embrace playing spoiler on the uniform reveal, sold-out crowd, big weekend in Lubbock, then you're going to win the game. Felt like you did that the first couple of drives of the game. I thought things looked well. They weren't perfect. You were still struggling and showing some early signs of struggling to run the ball, but you were moving the ball down the field well. Weren't finishing drives. You would have felt a lot better if you ended up, 21 zip as opposed to 13 zip. But such is football at times, especially with this team. But then it feels like that entire mentality just vanished. And like you lost the chip on your shoulder. I don't even think it was like they got too comfortable and they took their foot off the gas. I think Colorado just adjusted and they fell into the rhythm of the game, and you it's like you used all your gas in the first quarter and you just had nothing left to give in that game. Really, really surprising for that to be the case. Again, I think a lot of things went wrong, but I think that was probably the most troubling for me, was just kind of to see things just completely deflate. And once again, this team just cannot string together consecutive quarters of good football. And it's really, really strange to watch, especially in pivotal quarters like the second and the fourth. Granted, you're coming off a good fourth quarter against Iowa State, but you just seem to stall out in the second quarter. You lose all your juice. And then just an overarching thought, I know we're going to dig a little deeper, but you could start to kind of see the battle in the trenches play out towards the back end of that 13-zip lead. Defensively, you were holding strong, it looked like, but offensively, I think the inability to create gaps in the run game, it was bad. It was really, really bad, and that was one of my main takeaways from this game, was just This is a Colorado team that has had to completely rebuild its roster and has been particularly bad on the offensive and defensive line. And they looked leaps and bounds better than you at each of those spots.
Kyle.
Yeah, I hate how not confident I was up 13-0. Is like you could kind of feel it coming when you had to settle for a couple of those field goals, and then on your fourth possession you punted, and I remarked I was actually sitting next to a Colorado alumnus who I invited to the game, and was like, our offense has gotten worse on its first four consecutive possessions, and I didn't expand on it at the time, but in my head I'm like, and it's probably not about to just magically turn around on possessions 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I was shocked at how poorly we ran the ball. Um, I mean, Taj for a while there, his longest carry was maybe 4 yards, and you're looking up at the screen, it's like 22 carries, 39 yards, and you're like, okay, yeah, some of that is Barron taking sacks or whatever. But it's like truly, we're not getting more than 2 or 3 anytime we run it, and throwing it was probably somehow even worse. If you look at some of the advanced, like our EPA at the end of the game when passing was, I don't even remember what it was, like negative something, and it was about double, like twice as bad as running. And I guess we kind of padded our rushing stats at the end when we started gashing them when they were, of course, playing the pass. But we hadn't really seen that. I mean, we have seen Taj have to grind it out for 4 or 5 yards a carry, and we've seen it like not look pretty, but we've never seen somebody just stuff Taj for 2 yards per carry for the first 2/3 of a game or something like that. Um, I think there's a lot of blame to go around, so I'm not trying to single anybody out in this entire episode. But yeah, the amount of pressure that was on Morton, of course, kind of compounded with 2 fumbles and a pick, but just a lot of negative plays. I mean, a lot of throwing for 0, a lot of sacks, a lot of, um, yeah, just truly negative plays, whether you were running it or throwing it. And I don't remember us being that bad at both components of the offense in the same game before. It was usually like, okay, if one isn't working, we can kind of piece it together with the other. Um, so yeah, that was frustrating to watch. And at one point, Colorado was on a 34-7 run before you kind of started clawing back in the fourth quarter. And it's stuff like that. And unfortunately, it has happened before, not just this year, but in years past. I forget the run we went on in Laramie, but it was something pretty bad for like 44 minutes of game clock. You didn't score a touchdown, or um, if you tune into a game and it's 34-7, you assume that one team is just drastically better than the other, that it's absolute domination, total blowout. And yes, the start was not that bad. The final score was not that bad, especially if you take away the last scoop and score. But in any portion of a game, if you're being outscored 34-7, should be a huge red flag. And obviously, we have a lot to work on. It's also part of what makes, not to not to dredge up old stuff, but I think what was the run against TCU? You were on like a 24-0 run, something like that, and lost the game. So it's like you've kind of done that, not consistently by any stretch to other teams, and not capitalized on it. And then Colorado does it to you and beats you. So I think that's a huge thing for next year is finding a way to piece good football together for 60 minutes. We've kind of talked about it sometimes as complementary football, like when the defense gets a stop or when the offense scores a touchdown, can another phase of the game go in and build on that, or killer instinct? Like when one phase of the game puts it in the hands of another phase of the game, can they finish the job? And the returns are consistently no, that's not going to happen. And you just can't go on runs like that, stretches like that, and expect to win. We've kind of survived it sometimes, but not consistently enough to be where we want to be. And so I think that's going to be a major theme, hopefully these last 2 weeks, but definitely in the offseason going into next year.
Rob, you're muted.
What was your lead against ACU? 13-0? 14? 17?
Sounds about
You're up,
right.
you're up 14-0 against Arizona State too.
Yep.
I know you win those games, but I mean, obviously ACU came back and tied it. Took a lead. I don't know if they ever took a lead, but they tied it at the end. And Arizona State was right there with you too. So I think they took a lead. I look. It's one play in a game, but I did go take a photo of this third drive red zone play, and somebody said something about a safety. See up there in the sun, that's Josh Kelly. He's just run across the formation behind those two guys that are running crossing routes. It's a natural pick play. You're supposed to throw it fast, but he's open all the way to the 5.
And he's looking at him.
He's looking right at him. I didn't. The first time I watched it last night. I was like, okay, he's not really looking over there. He's looking at him all the way to the 10, and he just chooses not to throw it. It's a clean pocket, and he bails. It's funny. Baron Morton looked so crisp. He was throwing on time, accurately, really good balls for a drive and a half. And then the first half of that third drive, and after that, he just, I don't know. He couldn't sense pressure. He was bad on timing. I don't know. He was not good after the first quarter for a large stretch, and the guards were really bad, just to the naked eye. The tackles might have been even worse. I mean, your offensive line was really bad. Baron Morton, it's hard to play great quarterback with a bad offensive line, but it's not impossible to play good quarterback, and it didn't even feel like he was doing that at times. So it's frustrating. It was a frustrating game, and that's not even getting into why it was frustrating with things you couldn't control.
Our offensive line was as bad last night as our fans thought they were the first 8 or 9 games of the season.
Yeah.
They talk about them like they're dreadful and like they're not great. I'm not under any pretense that they are. But if you like pull some PFF scores, this is actually so bad. I don't want to say the young man's name, but one of our starters on the offensive line, his passing grade was not high enough to have a driver's license on a scale of 1 to 100. Like it was 14. So that is terrible. That's pretty much as bad as you can be if you're an able-bodied person on a football field. But we talk about the offensive line when they're scoring in like the 60s on PFF, like they're scoring 14s. But last night was actually about as bad as it can be. This triggered me when I saw it. Your highest graded offensive player on PFF last night was Caleb Rogers, which says more about how bad the offense played than Caleb Rogers being some like leader in the clubhouse. But all 5 starting offensive linemen had a rough night. Obviously the run blocking was not there. The pass blocking was bad, and Morton probably compounded some of that with not having the clock in his head right. And usually, I feel like he kind of bails a little early on some pretty clean pockets. And last night it was the opposite. It was like, get out of there, step up, run, throw it away, do something. And he was always a split second late. So none of that helped itself. And, I also saw a lot of fire going toward Kitley, and I feel like that's just the default now. I don't know what you're supposed to call when your offensive line is pass blocking that bad, run blocking that bad, your quarterback is making bad decisions, is inaccurate. I would be stumped if I were in his shoes. I don't know what everybody else thought they saw. And I've obviously been critical of Kitley on here before, but I've at least kind of had an idea of, hey, instead of A, we should try B instead. Last night, I don't really know what you could have feasibly done to say, had we dialed it up like this, surely it would have worked, because it seemed like pretty much nothing was.
Yeah, you couldn't run the ball, and for whatever reason, you went away from the passing attack that was working. So I don't know.
I think Colorado adjusted well, though, because
Yeah,
we were doing
I
great with
do.
the drags and crossing routes, and they obviously figured it out. And after drive 3 or so, like, that was just not there as much anymore. I don't think we tried to throw it to Travis Hunter's side of the field. That obviously is a big factor when you either can't or won't do that, and that's a credit to him for being probably the best defensive back in the country. So again, I just don't know if there are any right answers when your leading rusher in program history is getting 1.9 yards per carry for most of the game. You can't throw it to one half of the field. The offensive line can't pass block. The quarterback is making bad decisions, getting sacked, turning the ball over. I mean, again, if I'm in Kidley's shoes and I have to send in the next play, I'm like, I don't know what to call here.
Well-coached teams don't play bad, though. As this, well-coached teams have bad games all the time. Offensively, defensively. Sometimes the other team plays really well, and I thought Colorado played well. I don't want to take away from Colorado here. I thought they outplayed you for a large stretch of the game. They're very talented. I think they schemed well, and at times just out athleted you, i.e., the screen sideline hitch to Travis Hunter for the 19-yard touchdown on 2nd and 19 after a sack. That was a big one. Yeah, that was an issue, but you complain about, not you, this is the Royal U, the Tech fan base complains about all the screen passes. And they are frustrating, but it's amazing how the exact same play looks when you're throwing it to Travis Hunter or Wester or some of these athletes they have. And Shedeur Sanders is putting it, in running motion, on time, on the shoulder, or, a foot forward of the guy so he can start moving forward on pace. It just, the same play looks completely different. And then the Tech guy's catching it at his knee behind him and trying to turn around and go. It's just a completely different thing. Now, if you can't execute those and you keep going back to them, whose fault is that? But it's just frustrating because it's not like they were doing anything wild or crazy. They were running screens and similar stuff to you. They were just better at it, and that's frustrating.
Well, I think overall you played pretty good defense. You didn't turn them over, which hurt. But I think
really
they converted 2 or 3 third downs all game. You held them scoreless on their first 4 possessions. Key stop at the end to give your offense the ball back when it was a 1 possession game and put it in their hands. So I don't have too many gripes about the defense. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that Shador Sanders is a better quarterback than most guys that pretty much anybody Colorado's going to line up against. Travis Hunter, best athlete on the field, either side of the ball, no matter who's on the field. And yeah, it is certainly noticeable at times when there is a talent gap like that.
All right. Might as well rip the Band-It off here. There were 2 plays in question here. The first one, it's... Let me make sure I'm doing this right. The first one, it is... $17. All right. First one's 24-20. 24-20. Colorado has the ball. You've just scored. Sorry, it is 17-20. My bad. All right. Now we're all caught up. Nobody's confused. We're all fine. It is 20-17. Texas Tech leads. They scored to open the half. You responded. It's 17-20. Colorado has an incomplete pass on third down. No, I'm wrong again. When did this penalty happen? When was the that was the back-to-back penalties on Braylon Lux, the face mask and the other one. When was the penalty that I'm looking for? Anybody know? Was it the first drive? Oh, yeah, it was. All right. Now that we all look stupid. Nope, just me. It's 13-10. Now we're all caught up. Nobody looks stupid, especially me. 13-10. Shador Sanders pass left, incomplete on 3rd and 6. Chapman Lewis hits him in the waist. It's called roughing the passer. They score on, let's see, 2 plays later. Shador Sanders runs it in, 17-13. That is a long way from the end of the game, but that is a touchdown that really, in the moment, felt like, okay, that's they have the lead, it's over. But then you come back and score right after that. So I don't know that penalty really affected the game. What are you guys' thoughts on that penalty from Chapman Lewis? Was it roughing the passer, yes or no?
Obviously not.
Okay.
If that's roughing the passer, then you're not allowed to attempt to sack the quarterback.
It was right when the throw was happening.
Yeah, if it's a pump fake, then it's a sack.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you can't call roughing the passer. Now, I know they try to protect the quarterback's knees. They try to protect driving them into the ground. They try to protect, obviously, helmet to helmet. This was a textbook tackle right in the waist. The only area you're pretty much allowed to hit a guy nowadays. It's a terrible call. Should have been 4th and 6. I don't know if they would have punted. Long field goal. I can't remember exactly what yard line they were on. Maybe they would have gone for it. But as bad as they were on 3rd down, Colorado, I would have liked to at least roll the dice on 4th down. It's an absolutely atrocious call. It was so bad when they went to Dean Blandino, which the only reason they have those segments is so that Mike Pereira or Dean Blandino can take up for the refs and say, oh, yeah, they got it right. These guys are professionals. They always get it right. And even he was like, yeah, I don't like this call. That's how bad it was. It's atrocious. It's indefensible. And we'll get to this part later on accountability for officials, but it warrants an explanation.
Obviously, they score after that 24 to 20. They score, you score, they score 24 to 20. They score. You go 3 and out. Send out the punt team. And with 3:16 left in the third, down 4, after you just go touchdown, 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 and have kind of a back-breaking penalty that gets called, all the moment, they've scored 2 straight drives. Your defense is on its heels. You let Jason Llewellyn, who's entered the box score for the first time all year as the 4th or 5th string tight end, throw a pass as the up back, and you're kind of in a tight formation. The receiver gets mauled, but the ref is looking at him like the gunner. Nobody knows what happened. The pass hits the floor. Nobody looks at it. No call. Oh, wait, there was a call? No, we're going to wave the flag off. Turnover on downs. They score in 4 plays.
I'm actually going to back up to the roughing the passer call. That was part of what made me mad about it was so late. It was almost as if this happens in basketball all the time. A guy drives the lane, shoots a layup. If it goes, they leave it alone. If it doesn't go, they call a foul. They waited until that pass sailed over the receiver's head and then threw the flag. Like, and I'm not insinuating that the game is rigged and the ref is like waiting to see if it's complete. I'm just making the comparison to basketball that, like, in the ref's mind, he's probably thinking that's 50-50. If they complete it, I'm just going to let it go. And then when it was not complete, it was like, well, they probably deserve a first down. Here's a flag. On this one, and this happened again later, they throw the flag. So somebody noticed as it was happening, a penalty occurred on this play. And then Joe Schmo runs in from 40 yards over on the opposite side of the field and says, no, actually, there's no flag. And then they pick it up. So it's not even like a total missed call. They saw it, they flagged it, and then for whatever reason, after they huddle, say no. And again, that warrants an explanation. When a guy gets mauled so badly that a ref does call a flag, I think it's owed to somebody, the head coach, the media, whoever. What went into y'all picking up the flag on that extremely consequential play? And by the way, I'm going to point this out, flag it now for later, but not all flags are the same. A false start in the first quarter is not the same as a 3rd or 4th down, like what would have otherwise been a turnover kind of play. And so I don't want to hear this, oh, there's the same number of penalties on both teams. A smart watcher of the game can understand that some penalties are more consequential than others, such as like what would be a first down on a failed 4th down attempt in this case, and then they pick it up and instead Colorado gets the ball in prime field position.
Prime, they do get it on the 31. Shedeur Sanders pass complete, loss for 6. Shedeur Sanders pass complete to the 15. Complete to the 14. There's holding. 2nd and 19, Travis Hunter. Touchdown from the 24. 31-20. The next drive. 1st and 10, Taj for 5. 2nd and 5, Taj for 5. 1st and 10, Taj for 3. It's the 4th quarter. Barron pass complete for 12. Baron Morton sacked on 1st and 18 from the 35. On 2nd and 18, pass complete for 5. On 3rd and 13, pass complete for 4. On 4th and 9, Baron Morton sacked by Keaton Wade and Amari McNeil. Loss of 11, turnover on downs. Flag goes up. Targeting. Review. No targeting. Turnover on downs.
So this is another 4th down, extremely consequential play. They call the flag and then pick it up and decide no, and then miss a blatant, like obvious face mask. And there's the back judge. His eyes are on the scrum that is the offensive line, the pocket. He's the guy who should see holding, hands to the face mask, roughing the passer, any of that. He's staring right at it, and they missed it. This wasn't some like judgment call on 1st and 10 or whatever. This is 4th down. It's a blatant, obvious penalty that should have been 15 yards and an automatic 1st down, and they blew it again.
I legit thought the stadium was going to burn down after this. And like it's the procedure, right? Like you can't go back and call the face mask. I didn't think it was targeting. I thought that was the right pickup, but they definitely should have called a face mask. But you can't go back and atone for that sin.
It was.
I just want the side by side of Shador Sanders getting hit as he throws in the waist, and Morton on that play. And one is 15 yards and automatic 1st down, the other isn't. Like, no sane person, whether they've watched football for 50 years or 30 seconds and is being explained the rules for the first time, looks at the first one and says, yeah, that one is the flag. You have to eliminate that from the game. But the other one is fine. That's no foul, Colorado's ball. No sane person watches those two clips and thinks the first is a penalty and the second one is not.
Rob, did they show a clear replay of the face mask on the big screen?
That was in the second half, so I was already at the Overton. Kyle was there.
I honestly don't remember. I was more looking at the targeting part, and so I don't know if they kind of like started the replay after the face mask, because remember it was like face mask, he pulls away a little bit, and then the targeting call. And I agree, it's probably on review, probably not targeting. He does lead with the crown, but he gets him in the shoulder. Live, it looked like he got him square in the face mask, which probably would have been a penalty. But I don't remember if the actual face mask was visible on the video board or not.
He launches, though. He spears him with the crown. Targeting is not just to protect who's getting hit. Targeting is also to protect who is doing the hitting. And he launches with the crown of the helmet. That's textbook targeting. Have we stopped doing that? Do we not do it? Because I keep saying that, but everyone disagrees with me. Am I wrong?
Targeting is a metaphor.
So
Yeah, I think at some point it's like,
the rule says,
how is that different than just like tackling?
because you can't lower your head. If you keep
you
your
have
head
to
up,
everybody launches at somebody when they're tackling them. Like I don't really care because it was a blatant face mask. I mean, whether you want to call face mask or targeting or roughing, whatever,
yeah.
Give us 15 yards and automatic 1st down. I don't really care what you call.
The problem here is it's 11-point lead for Colorado, 31-20. After that, though, Colorado goes 3 and out. So now you lose a drive, you probably at least kick a field goal there. If you get the 1st down, you're definitely in field goal range. It's 31-23 at that point. Who knows what happens after that? Doesn't happen. They go 3 and out. Bear Morton throws an interception right to the guy's chest. Great play by the linebacker. I don't know. That was a great play by the linebacker, jumping up and catching that. They kick a field goal after that. Next drive, Bear Morton gets sacked and fumbles. 3 and out. Then Taj Brooks gets face masked at the 1, no call. Turnover on downs on an 80-yard drive.
So that was another 4th down.
Yes.
Not 1st and 10.
It would have been first and half.
I know I'm
from
speaking to all penalties are created equal guy on Twitter
Sure.
who says, "Oh, they both had 8 penalties. It must have been
Gotcha.
called fair and square."
Gotcha. After the turnover on downs, 3 plays, punt. So after they get a 14-point lead, after they get an 11-point lead, your defense goes punt, field goal, punt, punt, punt. Your offense goes interception, fumble, turnover on downs, touchdown. So now it's 34-27. I'm sitting there at the Overton. How in the hell is this even a game? What is going on? How are we still in the mix? Holy crap. 3 and out again after a touchdown, and they start with a delay of game? This is insane. We're going to get the ball with a minute left. Baron Morton's going to have an incredible chance to do something. It's a legacy drive. Oh, wait. Fumble. Everyone thinks it's an incomplete pass on offense. Defense continues to play. Shiloh Sanders picks it up, does the Deion shuffle. Ball boy tries to get the ball. Deion Sanders Jr. pushes him. Shador says, "You
Was
a
that
hoe."
Dion Jr.?
Yeah, the one with the camera. I'm fairly certain that's Deion Jr., yeah.
The guy who shoves the ball boy?
Yes, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly certain. He does all their social media, so I would assume he's down there with the camera.
I didn't know that was him.
It could have not been. I just it's funnier to me when it is.
It might have been. I don't know what he looks like or
I don't either, honestly, but I think it was. That makes it 41-27. End of game. You try to mount something later, but doesn't really work.
Can we back up a few more so I can keep bitching about the refs?
Yeah, what do you want to bitch about?
Can one of y'all pull up a Texas Tech roster while I start to talk through this? And
Yep.
and I'm just going from memory. I had them listed in my notes. There was a play. We were, I guess, on offense, and our offensive lineman, their defensive lineman, end up on the ground together. Their defensive lineman is on top of our guy, throws like a forearm, not like a full punch, and then immediately does the like hands up thing, like, it's like you just elbowed him or forearmed him, whatever. Just because you throw your hands up after that doesn't mean you didn't do anything. Again, the ref is staring right at it, like he's observing this tussle, and calls nothing. Like that should have been a personal foul, unsportsmanlike conduct, whatever. After 14 on their team scored, he runs down like halfway up our sideline, shushing the entire sideline. No flag. And like Kiki QT got flagged for doing like one quick shush to the entire like West Virginia stadium. Like
Yeah.
not targeted at anybody, not in anybody's face. It was like an insta flag. Like the second his finger reached his lips, flag. Colorado had staffers going out so far onto the field, they were like at the numbers, yelling and pointing at our sideline like as if they wanted to start a fight or something. I don't know how that's allowed. Dion stops the game for 5 minutes at a time to ream the refs. I don't know how that's allowed. Dion got a timeout call when they had 12 men on the field and we were about to have a free play, which our offense could have used on Saturday night. He got the timeout not only after the ball was snapped, but like the ball was in Barron's hands and he was dropping back to pass with it. And 1 week ago in Ames, we did not get that timeout call. And I was pretty critical of Joey. I was like, you have to find a way to get the ref's attention, call timeout. And I get like a split second if you're getting the call and like as the ref is reaching for his whistle, the ball is snapped, it can look like it's a late whistle by a split second. This was like 2 full seconds. At that point, if you're the ref, I think you have to stand there and say, like, the call didn't get in on time. The play is live. We're not stopping it.
And the ref has that prerogative, which is what happened at Ames.
It 100%. And that's where, if you want to be loose with it, but be consistent week to week. Okay, does one of you have the roster pulled up?
Yeah.
Who is number 8 for Texas Tech?
Koyakin.
Okay, is there another number 8?
On defense, Amarian Banks, but he got hurt last week.
Okay. So Coy Aiken and Duda Banks, neither one of them would be in coverage against Colorado, correct?
Right. Oh, yes, yeah,
So they called a defensive holding on number 8.
yeah,
Um, they missed. Again, the ref is staring right at it because he's looking at the quarterback in the pocket. Charles Esters is about to sack Shador Sanders, or at least hit him and get a roughing the passer call. But he's being held blatantly, like
yeah,
handful of cloth from behind. It's a hold. And instead, they don't call that. They call holding on number 8 on the defense, who doesn't exist.
yeah. It was number 9, Baskerville.
Okay, that's still incompetence to get the number wrong. Like maybe
Yeah,
in a different form, but that should have been offsetting at the very least. Trying to think if there's others.
I will say
Like I said,
the numbers were hard to read,
I had a list.
and
I might
Baskerville's jerseys up.
I might be missing some. It was a list of like 12 to 15, and I'm not like a one call. Oh, you have to call PI there on some like really subjective judgment call. This was like no call after no call, bad call after bad call all night long in third down, fourth down, turnover type spots that they were just dreadful. They officiated this game. No, well, I'll say it this way. Colorado behaved in a way that they could get away with whatever they wanted, and the refs obliged them and officiated the game as if they can get away with whatever they wanted. I thought it was terrible. I was kind of triggered that Joey aimed his ire at the students and not the refs. I think there was some Streisand effect there. I saw one water bottle on the field. I saw a couple more on the sidelines, but not interrupting play. Um, and so much attention was drawn to that, and they would stop the game for so long. And I'm like scanning. I'm like, is there anything on the field? Is there any reason why we can't play right now? And there's nothing. And I'm like, am I just missing it? So I text everybody, like, hey, from where you're sitting, or if you're watching on TV, am I missing this? Like, is there a bunch of crap on the field? And people were like, no, I literally saw nothing. I saw one water bottle. It barely made it past the sideline. I don't know why they kept stopping play for 10 minutes at a time to allegedly clear the field. There was nothing on the field. Um, and so I don't know why Joey's screaming at us when the refs are kind of blatantly robbing us of at least an opportunity that, in fairness, we probably wouldn't have taken advantage of anyway if, our track record is any indication. I was like, dude, why are you yelling at us? Like, we're trying to build a good home atmosphere. And I know that throwing stuff on the field isn't okay. But again, it's like we're talking 3 water bottles or something here. One of them made it onto the field. The rest is just tortillas, it looks like. Um, like, how are you not working the refs for completely jobbing you on third down, fourth down, turnovers? And I guess he kind of did after the game, but I felt like that was a little bit misplaced and just kind of people predictably, as soon as he said that, or maybe it was when Cowan got on the PA system, said like, fans, don't throw anything on the field. Immediately from the student section, like another water bottle goes like, y'all are literally just going to make this worse. And stopping play 3 times because one water bottle made it onto the field when you could easily just kind of like kick it off to the side, it to me just made it worse. And I've had that opinion before. Same thing happening against Iowa State a few years ago. Like the more attention you call to it, and the more you plead with drunk students not to throw stuff on the field, the more you just give them an idea of throwing crap on the field. Uh, and if it's a Texas situation and there's 500 water bottles on the field, obviously you can't ignore that, and you have to stop play and clean up the field. But either one of you can correct me if I'm wrong. If you saw 10 water bottles on the field and I just missed them, please let me know. I saw one, and so I don't know what all the stoppages were about.
I think it was more that that their sideline was getting hit with the water bottles.
Well, they seem like pretty tough guys to me, or at least that's how they behave toward the ball boys and the grounds crew. So
It's
I'm
true.
surprised that they're that soft that in like a full suit of armor they couldn't handle a tortilla or a water bottle.
Yeah, yeah. Keep your helmet on. How about that?
I mean, anytime they caught a pass for 10 yards, they flex on everybody in front
Yeah.
of the entire stadium, but a tortilla was too much. Is this what I'm to believe, Rob?
I, for one, have never seen that many tortillas. That was pretty awesome.
It was great.
Did you feel, Kyle? You've been to a bunch of Texas Tech games in the last 13 years? Is that how long ago you got to Texas Tech?
Yes, I think this is season 13.
Um, how well do I know my co-hosts, huh?
Yeah, look at that.
Look at us. Who would have thought? Not me. Did you feel, Kyle, that this
Sick reference,
was?
bro.
Did Thank you. Did you feel like this was a? Let me ask it this way. The traffic, the amount of people in the stadium, how early everyone was. What opponent would you relate that to in the last 10 years?
I mean, it felt like your biggest game of the year. I guess the Big 12 schedule, you had Texas and OU in the
Yeah.
same year, and then like in the off year, it was kind of a crapshoot. Sometimes it was Arkansas or Oregon. This felt like this year's game of that same, magnitude, like the one that everybody's looking forward to. And it's because it's Dion, they're ranked. It wasn't a night game, but it's kind of like afternoon. It got dark by the fourth quarter. I noticed immediately as soon as the student section was in that overflow grass area in the north end zone, I was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be a big crowd because that only happens if we're playing, again, Oregon, OU, Texas, like a ranked opponent kind of deal. There's probably some Oklahoma State games like that back when they were in like prime Gundy era. Um, but yeah, it felt like
Felt
the
like
equivalent to your biggest home game of the year.
It felt like Texas.
Yeah.
Because even when Oklahoma was here, there were a lot of Oklahoma fans, but it didn't ever really feel tense, or it was just like, all right, Oklahoma's here, and a lot of Oklahoma fans showed up, so the stadium's maybe a little bit fuller than normal, but that was packed. It stayed packed. I leave at halftime every week because I have to go to my post game duties and set up or whatever. And it's always flowing out. Thousands of people are leaving with me every week. Maybe hundreds this time. I mean, a lot of people stayed for the third quarter, which I thought was impressive too. I was really, really impressed, is what I'll say.
Yeah, amazing crowd. And quite frankly, to tie a bow on this, I don't want the opposing team's sideline to enjoy their experience at the Jones. Um, I loved the hostility. I wish that all 6 or 7 home games were like that. They're not going to be when you play Abilene Christian or whatever. But I loved it, and I thought that the vast majority of it, 99% of it, should have been encouraged, not discouraged. Um, Money, by the way, looking good. You mentioned there was a moment you thought the stadium was going to erupt. I thought it was like right after a couple of these controversial calls, and I think it was a Taj run out of bounds. Might have been Barron. Extremely
Taj,
late hit, like on our sideline. I don't know how the ref doesn't like fear for his life with 100 of our guys right there screaming for the flag, and we can't get the call. And again, like Dion somehow has the authority to stop the game for 10 minutes at a time to relay whatever he would like to the officials, and we can't get an obvious like late hit out of bounds call. After again, we just got screwed. Like if anything, we're kind of owed a makeup call here, and we can't get it at home on our own sideline. It was insane to me, the officiating. It was. I'm not going to say it was rigged, but it was officiated as if like they were going to give Colorado any toss up calls, or like they wanted the biggest marketing brand in the Big 12 to make it to the conference championship game, make it to the playoff. Like that's, I won't say it was rigged, but I'll say this: if it was rigged, I don't think it would have been officiated any differently.
if the Big 12, let me ask it this way: if the Big 12 was going to rig two people into the Big 12 championship game, who would it be?
Colorado, and at this point BYU, 100%.
And what happened this weekend?
Yes. The only thing that would be slightly different is I don't think they would have called a couple flags and then picked them up on us. They would have just not called them if it was like blatantly rigged. But and by the way, this is not if you're a first-time listener to this podcast, we do not get on here after every loss and go, "Oh, we got killed in Pullman because they
No,
missed this face mask." We never talk about the refs on this podcast. Like
no.
maybe if there's one big call or something, we never put a loss on the officiating. I don't think that's ever happened on this podcast. And if you just search Texas Tech Colorado, because I was looking for like other video clips, if you just search the words Texas Tech Colorado on X, it's like unbiased, just college football accounts saying this is the worst officiating I've ever seen. One of them was like, I like Colorado, but Tech is getting screwed. I mean, this is not just copium from Tech fans that wanted us to win the game. This was like neutral observers, people just watching this thing like, what the hell is going on? This officiating is dreadful.
Now, all that being said, again, you look at those penalties, they do score after the first roughing the passer, but you scored after that. And then the rest of the time, maybe they get one field goal after one of these penalties, but most of the time they're giving it right back to you on 3 and outs, and you're still not converting. So was the officiating awful? Yes. Did it affect the game in ways that are unquantifiable? Yes. Is that why Colorado won the game? No. No. Now, did it affect the game? Yes.
Like
Did
I
it
said at the
affect the game?
outset, a lot of
Is that
blame to go
why?
around.
Yeah, I think they could have probably still won.
I'll criticize Tech. I think I already have criticized a lot of what Tech did. So that this wasn't 100% geared toward the refs. And this wound up not being consequential at all, but it did kind of make me wonder. I put this in the mailbag, and hand up, I've got to confess here, I did not listen to the Wednesday episode. I'm a bad gaucho / picador. I put a question in the mailbag that you're trailing a game by 14 in the fourth quarter, and you score a touchdown. What do you do next? How did y'all answer in the mailbag?
Well, Money said that you kick it deep, but then we went back and I think you said kick the extra point. Money?
Yeah, I was confused. I tried to give a roundabout answer per usual. Like, what's the game situation? How many timeouts do you have? But yeah, I would take the regular PAT and kick it deep, assuming I have all 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning.
I'm also taking the PAT.
You go for 2. You always go for 2. It's not a judgment call. It's not a subjective feel of the game.
Yeah, you should
go for
listen
2.
why I said that you would say that.
And people who cover this sport still don't realize that. And like when somebody does it, like, what are they doing? What are they thinking? So let's assume that like the game is going to unfold how you want it to, that you score, do whatever you want on the extra point or the 2-pointer, and you score again without the other team scoring. If you go for 2 the first time, let's call it 50-50 shot that you get it. You don't get it, you're down by 8. You do get it, you're down by 6. So you get your second touchdown. If you didn't get the 2-point try, you have another 50-50 shot to tie it up and send it to overtime. If you did get it the first time, now you kick the extra point, you win in regulation, you don't even have to mess with overtime. But if you play for overtime, all you're doing is setting up another 50-50 proposition that you win in overtime, assuming that's 50-50. And so I think the math breaks down like you have a 62.5% chance to win the game if you go for 2 the first time. You have a 50% chance to win the game if you kick the extra points and then go to overtime. And so, again, it didn't matter because we didn't score the second time after we cut it to 1 possession. But there's absolutely no justification for not going for 2 there. And I probably didn't explain it as great as or as eloquently as it could be. You can Google it. I'm sure there's a really well-written article out there about why mathematically it makes sense and it enhances your win probability to go for 2 in that spot. And we didn't do it. And again, there's a lot of other things that went wrong, and the refs were terrible. But that's kind of, to me, like a football, not 101, but if you're the head coach at a Power 4 level, you should go for 2 in that spot in the fourth quarter.
Why?
Because it's stupid not to.
No, it's not.
You're playing to lose if you don't do that.
No, you're not.
Yes, you are.
Because the numbers say so?
What do you mean because the numbers say so? That's like the ultimate reason why you should.
If it's a 50-50 shot to get a 2-point conversion, which, by the way, wouldn't be with how Texas Tech was playing, is it not a 100% shot to make a college PAT with Gino Garcia?
Yeah, we can call it like 47 and 99, which I think is like roughly the.
Okay.
I think the actual numbers is like 47 and a half and like 98, 99. But it's
And-
a lot easier to use 50 and 100.
And what's Joey McGuire's record in overtime games at home?
That has no bearing on the
Why does
current
it have no
game.
bearing? Why does it have no bearing?
Because beating Houston in 2022 doesn't mean that you should decrease your odds to win a game against Colorado in 2024
If
because
you
you don't
go
understand the.
if you go for 2 twice last night against Colorado, you get neither of them. And that is not increasing your odds, that's decreasing your odds.
That's not necessarily true, though, is it?
I think it is.
It's not, because one of the most successful plays you ran was like a 3-yard drag route that probably scores. You go Wildcat, I mean, you can get at least one of them. And if it happens to be the first one, you only have a 25% chance of not getting it at all. And in that case, you lose the game outright, but you don't even get a shot in overtime. But if you get one of them and it happens to be the first one, then you win in regulation. And it's 100% the right thing to do. There's like not even an argument to be had here.
I think we literally just had an argument about it. So there is an argument.
No, I think you're trying, but it's like it's not even.
I think it is happening.
It's wrong. It's not a judgment call. It's not subjective. It's wrong to kick the extra point in that spot.
Disagree.
It doesn't matter if you disagree. It's like disagreeing with me that the sky is blue.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
You've been talking to Tech Hoops guy too much.
Tech Hoops guy would probably back me up on this.
Oh, 100% he would. That doesn't mean he's right.
In this instance, he's definitely right if he agrees with me.
Tech Hoops guy, actually, it was right to go for it on 4th down, on 4th and 6 with a fake punt instead of trotting your offense out there, because the win probability says that even though they just scored and went up 4 and your offense is stalled out for a quarter and a half, the win probability says it was the right move.
I don't know about that, but the math that I'm laying out on going for 2 is irrefutable. You always do it.
So why not go for 2 all the time? Why ever kick an extra point?
That's too early in the game for the situation I'm describing. I said in the mailbag question, 4th quarter, and that's the situation you were in on Saturday night. It was the 4th quarter.
All right, let's take the BYU game, for example.
Yeah.
It finishes, or let's just take any game that finishes 21-21. Why not just go for 2 on all 3 of your touchdowns if you think it's going to be a low-scoring game, like in the Big Ten? If touchdowns are a premium in the first quarter and you don't know if you're going to score again, why not just go for 2 there and go for 2 every time?
Because in the long run, it's probably only going to net you 1 point. If you're good at executing 2-point conversions, it'll only net you 1 point on average per score. So you may as well just take the automatic.
And if the number says you're 50% and you're going for it twice, isn't that the same as kicking 2 extra points?
No. So the way I'm describing it, you would have, excuse me, you would have a 25% chance to lose in regulation. That's if you miss both of them. You would have let me see here, 50% chance to win in regulation. And then the other 25% is split between you lose in overtime or you win in overtime. So 12.5 each. So 12.5 plus 50 is 62.5% chance to win the game. You kick both extra points, it's just 50-50 once you get to overtime. That's why this version is better.
50-50 across all of college football, but not Joey McGuire at home in overtime, because that's 100%.
No, but it's close enough that you don't close a 12.5% gap.
Agree to disagree.
You could say, oh, it's 54% that you win in overtime because Joey has an edge in OT, but your 2-pointers are bad, so it's only 58% if you go for it early, but that's still a 4% edge if you go for 2.
Taj Brooks broke the record.
He did. Big shout out to Tosh.
Big shout out to Taj. They showed a graphic in the stadium after the drive. I believe our friend Emilio said there was maybe a firework or something that went off. Is that true?
I think so, yeah.
I just thought it'd be a bigger deal.
You know, if Dion can stop the game for 10 minutes to bitch about tortillas, I think we should have been able to stop the game for 2 minutes to recognize a legitimate school record and celebrate Tosh Brooks.
They called a timeout. Colorado did on right after the run where he broke the record. And I doubt that Dion had that much of a pulse on like the actual yardage needed, but it felt like a really odd point in the game to call a timeout.
It was a weird timeout.
Yeah, it was, I think, our first play of that drive. And of course, they're playing like prevent defense. We gash them. And so I don't know if they were just like wanting to sub so that we didn't, like, if they had 7 DBs out there or something and they knew we were going to run that same play 3 times. And he was like, okay, no, we have to sub.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because, yeah, that was kind of the moment I like looked up. I was like, holy cow, how are we at 120-something yards rushing? Because it had been so bad all day.
Yeah.
But that was cool. That was really cool. Small silver lining.
I did think they, I don't know. We had a website all year.
I bet they'll do something before the West Virginia game, like on senior night.
Good. Hopefully so. All right.
Hey, Rob.
I met Michael Crabtree.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You can tell us about that, and then I'll ask you what I was going to ask you.
We were on the stage for the Optimum Game Day Live with Double T 97.3, me and Clint Scott. And did you watch Crabtree on Big Fox noon kickoff?
No, I missed it.
Did you, Money?
I did.
What'd you think about him?
Sorry, a little nervous out there.
I don't think he was nervous. Let's just say he might have tripped up the stairs, to talk to me. We were live on air. He asked if we were live on the radio. I said, yes, Michael Crabtree, the greatest receiver I've ever seen. How are you? And he's talking to me like, I'm on the radio. I can't really. So I just hand him my headset, and Clint interviews him for 2 minutes. Then we go to break. He's like, no, y'all got to talk to Brandon Williams. So Brandon Williams comes up, and I hand my headset to Brandon Williams. And we interviewed him, or Clint interviewed them both for like 5 minutes. But I'll say that McCrabtree maybe was well served, and it was a really funny experience.
Good for him.
There was one point on Big Noon Kickoff as he was closing, talking to Dion, and he was like, well, "Good luck today." I mean, no, not good luck today. Yeah. No, not today. And I thought that part was a little awkward. Thought he might be enjoying some of that Lubbock hospitality.
Yeah.
Hey, Money, I think there's a non-zero chance that you're going to meet Wes Welker next year. And here's why. Last year, I met Lloyd Hill. And this year, Rob met Michael Crabtree. I feel like Welker's probably, if we were doing like a Mount Rushmore of Tech receivers, he's probably number 3 or 4 on that next to those other two. And so, like, we're on a pace right now of one Gaucho a year gets to meet a Mount Rushmore wide receiver. And so I think you and Welker might be next.
Yeah, you've got Welker or Jakeem Grant or somebody.
Yeah.
Make it happen, Wes.
I saw DeAndre Washington at the Overton after the game.
Did you?
He was wearing a jacket that said D-Wash.
I don't know that I could pick him out of a crowd. I saw Srodrick.
Shout out to Srodrick.
And Rico Jeffers.
Rob, the question I was going to ask you a minute ago when we were talking about Taj breaking the record. And Money, the only reason I'm not asking you is because you were probably a little young. But Rob, do you remember when Emmett broke the all-time record?
Yeah, they stopped the game. Had like a jersey. He took his jersey off and he put on a new jersey. It was like a huge deal in the game, and they celebrated it. That's what I was expecting for Taj for some reason.
I can't remember if I'm making this up because somebody like joked about it or if this actually happened. But do you remember what happened like right after he broke the record?
He lost yardage.
Yes, right. Didn't he lose the record immediately after and then like had to go get it again?
Yeah, something like that.
That's
I was very worried that Taj was going to do that.
that's funny.
Yeah.
But like Taj has 2 whole games left, and Emmett, of course, was still playing like a couple more years after that.
Right.
But I was like, what if he breaks it by 1 yard and they do this, and then we get like stuffed on the next play for -2 yards, and then like obviously he still would have surpassed it eventually, but that was kind of funny when that happened to Emmett Smith.
You try like an option, it goes like 30 yards backfield.
Yeah.
He's the one to pick it up.
Gosh, that'd be rough. Okay, anyway. Are we mostly done? Can I circle back to BYU?
Yes. Yes. Can I set the table for this?
Sure.
All right. I don't know. This may not be where you're going. You go first.
Well, could you actually pull up your Mark's statement in between what
Yes.
Utah's AD said last night and his apology that I kind of paraphrased? Because the Big 12, when they announced his fine, they released a statement, and I want to draw on some of that if we can. And maybe this is the same route you were going, Rob. Maybe it's not, but this was my kind of. Also, I'll say this: I think Joey was a little bit loose with critiquing the refs. I was glad he did. I think it warrants some public criticism, and I think it was good for him to defend his team. I think he was probably helped by Harlan going way, way, way further overboard a few hours later. That might have distracted some attention that would have otherwise been directed at McGuire.
All right. I have your Mark statement. Yeah. What I was going to say just a second ago, just to really briefly say it, I thought Joey was an adult and wrote a fine line between this is what we saw, this is what we're turning in, this is how bad it was. And Harlan acted like a child and ran in there. And then the coach also did a press conference and threw a chair. Whittingham threw a chair. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah. So Whittingham was like, oh, your defense has been pretty good, coach. And he's like, yeah, but we didn't get the last stop. We've not gotten the last stop in the last several games. We've played really, really well, but couldn't get the last stop. He actually said it really calmly. I don't know why I'm screaming. He's like, yes, but we didn't get the last stop. Then he walked off, and there's a chair right beside him, and he just like throws it into the back wall and walks by the chair. Pretty funny. All right.
I have loved Utah's downfall from like we're gonna run the Big 12 to being 1-6 in this conference is hilarious.
Beautiful. The Lions have stormed back. It's 23-20, by the way. Detroit Trails. Do you want the your Mark statement?
Yes.
This is the entire Big 12 statement. In accordance with the Big 12 Conference sportsmanship policies, the conference has issued a public reprimand of University of Utah's Director of Athletics, Mark Harlan, for his actions at the conclusion of the game against BYU and his comments following the game. $40,000 fine will additionally be issued. This is from Brett, your Mark. Mark's comments irresponsibly challenged the professionalism of our officials and the integrity of the Big 12 Conference. There is a right way and a wrong way to voice concerns. Unfortunately, Mark chose the wrong way. Accordingly, this violation warrants a public reprimand and financial penalty. The Big 12 Conference prioritizes professionalism, integrity, and fairness, and will continue to do so. The Big 12 Conference will have No further comment on this issue.
Okay, let's go line by line. Can you read me your Mark's first sentence?
Mark's comments irresponsibly challenged the professionalism of our conference and the integrity of the Big 12.
Okay, professionalism and integrity. The Big 12 refs in the Tech Colorado game did enough from their calls and no calls to leave any neutral third party observer to question their professionalism and integrity, as evidenced by criticism on Twitter, not from Tech fans or Colorado fans, just college football fans watching the game, that if your Mark if Harlan's comments were so bad that they called the professionalism and integrity into question, your Mark should, obviously probably behind the scenes, not in the same public avenue, be concerned about the quality of the officiating if that's what fans are taking away from a Big 12 game. Can you read me the second sentence?
Am I making it up that Brett Yormark, like one of his main initiatives was to get better refs in his first year?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
No, you're not making that up. Yes, that happened.
There is a right way and a wrong way to voice concerns.
There's a right way and a wrong way to officiate a football game. What was the third sentence?
Unfortunately, Mark chose the wrong way.
Okay, unfortunately, the refs in the Colorado game chose the wrong way. What's the fourth sentence?
Accordingly, this violation warrants a public reprimand and financial penalty. The Big 12 Conference prioritizes professionalism, integrity, and fairness and will continue to do so.
The performance of the officials on Saturday night also warrants a public reprimand and financial penalty in the form of those refs should be suspended, something. There should be a review, an audit. Can we agree that college athletics is big business? You know, we're making hundreds of millions on TV contracts,
Mm-hmm.
and that probably means that we deserve to have quality officials that can keep everything within the guardrails of the game, within the confines of the game, and have it officiated properly. Like, it's too big of an enterprise to not invest properly in that component of it. You know, I get it that you can't just show up at anybody's place of business and criticize how they do their job. Like, I'm not going to go to Coles and tell the cashier that he's a bad cashier. But when you're a referee on a nationally televised game among two teams that are making tens of millions to play that game on a national network, I think the millions of people watching at home, the players involved, the coaches, the schools involved, deserve to have a certain standard of officiating. And the game did not come close to meeting that standard of quality officiating. I know nobody's going to be perfect. I know some of these are judgment calls. It's not as black and white as his foot was out of bounds or it wasn't. But I think anybody watching the game that didn't have a vested interest in seeing Colorado win could look at it and say, yes, this was poor officiating and it needs to be better. So Utah's AD knew he was breaking the rules. He probably knew, I'm just going to eat the fine. He knows he can't do that. And Yormark isn't wrong to punish him for it. But Yormark, as the leader of the conference, should also see the officiating product that was on the field and be just as fired up about how substandard that was, and should be just as vocal or intent on getting that fixed as he is getting Utah's AD in line. That's how I feel about it. Like, let's call it 50-50. Yes, you can't call into question the integrity of the game. The ADs, the coaches know they can't take the podium and say that without being fined. 100%. The problem is there's no similar mechanism to keep the referees accountable. They don't have to explain any of the shitty calls. They're not going to lose game checks over this. They're not even going to like have any sort of public review or acknowledgement that they whiffed on 10 or 12 calls. It's just, yeah, sorry, we called a shitty game. We might have ruined it, might have altered the outcome. It may alter the outcome of who hoists the trophy at the end of the year. Oh well, too bad. And that's, to me, that's not good enough. So I think that statement was great, and I think he should draft a nearly identical one to the head of officiating and figure it out. Probably not in season, but for next year. Like, do we need to fire some guys? Do we need to have them prove that they can officiate a quality game at the Mountain West level before we invite them back to the Big 12? Like you said, Rob, he's already kind of made this an initiative of his. Let's see that put into action, and let's see if we can improve the quality of officiating so that random third-party observers who don't have a dog in the fight aren't taking X to just say that it's rigged and that it's the worst officiating they've ever seen in a college football game, because that's also a really bad look for the conference. Just as bad, probably, if not worse, than whatever Mark Harlan said at the podium.
Mark Harlan, Utah scored 21 points, and they only scored in the second quarter. After the second quarter, they went like interception, punt, turnover on downs, punt, interception or something. They lost to Houston. Did the Big 12 rig that one? They lost to TCU. Did the Big 12 rig that one? Like, yeah, it was a close holding call on a receiver. And then they went and drove the length of the field to kick a field goal. Like, it's one play. You had plenty of times to stop them after that. I don't know. I feel like Joey and Kirby had more reason to react like that after the game, but Utah did it, and Utah looks worse because they did it.
Agreed.
So, lots of questions over here, lots of questions in the mailbag, but we're going to get to those on Wednesday. There's a question about the Baylor AD getting ignored by the Big Ten and the SEC. There was also a question about if Will Hammond should be QB1, and a question about the football team being distracted by Tyree Wilson's return to Lubbock. I don't think they were distracted by Tyree Wilson. We will talk about Will Hammond on Wednesday. I do just want to give a quick shout out to the city of Lubbock. What a weekend. Really, really good showing. People are going to take clips of water bottles or ball boys and go viral in favor of Colorado. But from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., I was very, very proud of the crowd, the stadium, the atmosphere, the pregame, the postgame. I thought Lubbock, the Jones, the fans were all very intense. I want that week in and week out. I thought Big Noon Kickoff was awesome. Shout out to Rob Stone. I thought he led the morning well. I thought he was very complimentary of the city and knew how to say Lubbock. If you watch that and want to know more about Lubbock, you can go to visitlubbock.org and learn more. Come see us. I think everyone had a good time. And obviously, you know where to get a tortilla here because there were a million maybe thrown. I would like to know from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. how many tortillas left to hand, because there were thousands on Big Noon Kickoff and thousands during the game. It was incredible. It was like in 300 when they said our arrows will strike out the sun, our tortillas will strike out the sun. And just a really, really fun day. I love being in Lubbock. I love watching games in Lubbock. There's one more opportunity. So if you're in West Virginia, if you're in Morgantown, and you want to come down to the city of Lubbock for Thanksgiving, do it. If you're a student or a family member and you're thinking about staying or coming to Lubbock for Thanksgiving, do it. Come to the game. Come to the game with your family. And if you want to go around the city and learn more, if you've not been back since, 2006, and you think the city stops at 82nd Street, boy, do I have news for you. We have expanded. And Milwaukee is not just a dirt road anymore. Elm Grove Golf Course doesn't exist. It's apartments. So much going on in the city. Visit Lubbock.org. You can find out more. And those are my final thoughts. Do you guys have final thoughts?
I think Dion and his staff are a bunch of clowns, and I wish them nothing but the absolute worst. Which they're probably going to win the Big 12 and then get a bye in the playoffs. So that part sucks. I think if you wanted to be charitable to Dion, and I'm not going to call the grown man Prime, I'm going to call him by his name. But if you want to be charitable and take like the most positive reception of who he is, what he's doing, you could say, oh, he's confident, he's got swagger, his team plays with an edge. All that is fine, in my opinion, between the lines. I don't know if I would conduct myself this way, but I find it hard to argue with Cam Newton's philosophy of if you don't want me to dab in the end zone, then keep me out of the end zone. Like I think between players, between the lines, that's basically true. If you win the game, you can pretty much say do whatever you want. But when your players and staff are like knocking over pylons just to give the grounds crew another chore to do to like put it back in its place, or shoving the ball boy for trying to get the ball that is Texas Tech property and cussing him out while doing it, I think that you're just a clown and kind of a douchebag. So that's not just like, oh, they're swagger, they're edgy, they like to talk trash. Between players on the field, that's fine. But like, what the hell are we doing here? I think that's total clown behavior. I wish them nothing but the absolute worst. I came into the season thinking I would root against Utah in any game. If Utah lined up against Colorado, I'd be the biggest Utes fan you ever saw. So I don't know. Colorado's probably going to make the playoff, which annoys me. It triggers me that the Colorado fan sitting behind me is also a Georgia fan, apparently. Maybe he got his undergrad at one place and then his master's at the other. Who knows? But yeah, I think they're attracting like the very worst of the like Lakers, Yankees, Cowboys fans are like now Colorado fans. That's the vibe I get from the entire fan base. I think it's a total clown show.
Kyle, I have some news for you, man. Next week at 11 a.m., Utah lines up against Colorado.
Go Utes, baby.
Money, you got any final thoughts?
Good basketball game on Wednesday, taking on Wyoming. Obviously poached their head coach from a season ago. That team does not look what I think they thought they were going to look like under Jeff Littner, but Wyoming shooting 50% from three so far this year, have not taken a ton of shots from deep, but have made the most out of the opportunities they've had. So should be a little bit of a better litmus test than you've had against Bethune-Cookman and Northwestern State, but still heavily favored. Hope you get to see Hawkins and Anderson in that one.
Fairbairn just missed a field goal. It's 23-23. And I think that's it for us.
Are the Texans front runners?
It was a really long field goal. Man, the Lions are already at the 50. Wow. Yeah.
I feel like the Texans performed really well last year when there was zero expectations.
Yeah.
And this year there's a little bit of expectations, and it's like a little bit of kind of folding when they maybe shouldn't.
I mean, they were playing the Lions.
Yeah, but also weren't they up by like 14 or 17 on the Lions?
Yeah. It was like 20 to 7.
Yeah, I don't know. I still like CJ Stroud and stuff, but they seem like they're not playing as loose or something as last year.
Yeah. A little bit of a Tom Herman-esque. Stroud, I thought, was much better last year. It was sophomore slump here.
Yeah, maybe so.
All right, I'm going to stop here because I don't want to talk about the Cowboys.
Yeah, they suck.
I think that was a little uncalled for. The Vikings do.
They haven't been good since Dion left.
Not the Vikings do today.
They won. They're 7-2.
Oh, they won.
Yep.
I thought they lost. That
Imagine a
backfired.
Cowboys fan trying to talk trash to the Vikings right
Oh,
now.
that backfired. I
Hey,
thought St. Carl do like 5 picks.
hey, maybe try scoring a touchdown in your home stadium. How about that?
The Cowboys haven't won since last December at home.
They have trailed by 20 or more points in 5 straight home games. First time in NFL history.
Okay.
That is Dak's legacy, by the way.
Okay. I love y'all.